What's going on, guys? Aero here, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, I want to talk to you guys more about the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now this game is probably Nintendo's most anticipated title at the moment. From the games that we officially know are confirmed, I do think that a majority of people are the most excited for this game. But in this video, I figured I would just talk about some of the thoughts that I have about this game, and kind of just how I feel about it, because I have wanted to talk about this for a while. Now before we do get started, I feel like I should make a disclaimer so people don't get the wrong idea. I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be a bad game or that it's not going to be good. In fact, I have a ton of faith and I'm very sure that it's going to be a very good game. Like at the end of the day, it is going to be a mainline Zelda game. It is going to be a sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is already loved by millions of people. There is no doubt in my mind that it's going to be an amazing game. It's a Zelda game at the end of the day. Zelda games are pretty much all of them are always critically acclaimed and loved, so I have no doubt that it's going to be a really good game. I feel like sometimes if you just talk about things like this, people get the wrong idea that you're starting to trash on the game. That's not the case. I'm still very excited for this game and I'm sure it's going to be very good. But what I really want to talk about in this video is not really the quality of Breath of the Wild 2, but more so just kind of the state of this game and kind of the way that Nintendo has handled it. Now from the time that I'm making this video in June 2022, there have only been 2 teasers for this game, and between the two there's like 3 total minutes of actual footage that we've seen. And it's just kind of weird because by this time you would think like they would have had a proper like actual trailer to showcase a lot of the game and give you like a big beefy like 3-minute trailer to really showcase what this game is going to be like. Now the reason that I'm saying that is because the original Breath of the Wild basically required the same amount of time. When Breath of the Wild was very first revealed in E3 of 2014, Aonuma basically gave you a teaser trailer to just showcase what the world is going to be like, and that was like your very first look at this brand new Zelda game. But after that, we were still calling it Zelda U because we didn't have a proper title for it, because that was just kind of a tease at what this open world Zelda game was going to be like. We didn't really know much about it and they didn't give us a full trailer. That didn't happen until E3 of 2016, which like I said was 2 years after 2014, when, if you guys remember, Nintendo had like a really big trailer. It was 3 minutes long and it showcased a lot of the combat. It showcased kind of how the open world looks and a lot of the different environments and Link traversing through them. It showed like the whole cooking aspect. It showed a lot of crazy things for the game, and at the end they finally revealed that the game is called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And so it's because of this that last year, when Nintendo did say that they're going to share more information later about the Breath of the Wild sequel, a lot of people expected them to finally just like lift the curtain and give us a big proper trailer to showcase really what this game is going to be like. And then at E3 we just had like a 1-minute kind of little teaser trailer again, where it was still great. I mean, of course it was still hype and I loved it, but I think a lot of people were just expecting to finally see more information. And it's really kind of when you sit down and think about what this game is where I feel like it gets a little weird, because the original Breath of the Wild was of course the very first big open world type of Zelda game like this, so they had to take a lot of time to actually make this entire game. And of course when they first gave us that teaser trailer in 2014 and then finally gave us that proper unveiling 2 years later, it felt worth it to finally get that big trailer and that big showcase. But this is a game that's going to be heavily relying on so much stuff that's already existing with the original Breath of the Wild. Like, this is a sequel that, of course, it looks like, from what we've already kind of seen so far, that a lot of it is kind of going to be using the same type of map from the original Breath of the Wild. They already have so many assets and things that they're just probably going to be reusing. Like, they don't need to make new sound effects for when you find an item and things like that. They're not going to make a new icon here for like how these bananas and apples look. They can probably just reuse all that stuff from the original Breath of the Wild. No one's really going to complain. So they have a lot of stuff that they're going to have to just basically bring over and reuse again. Like, they're not going to need to make new like trees and rocks and things like that. So it's just kind of weird that this game still hasn't had a proper big trailer even like more than 2 years later, considering that it's reusing so much. It's just insane to me because we still don't even have a title for this game, and this game was revealed 3 years ago because it was at E3 June of 2019, and I'm making this video now in June of 2022. It's 3 years later and I'm still calling this Breath of the Wild 2, which is just kind of crazy to me because I called it Zelda U for 2 years when the game was revealed at E3 2014, but E3 2016 we knew that it was called Breath of the Wild, and it's taking even longer for them to give a title for this game. And it's not even like Nintendo doesn't have a title yet because they don't know exactly what this game is going to be like. Literally last year, Bill Trinen already said that they have a title for this game finalized and they know exactly what this game is even going to be called, but they don't want to tell us yet because it apparently spoils too much potentially about what the game's going to be like. So at that point now, I'm just thinking like, when are you actually planning to tell us what the title of this game is and giving us like a full big trailer for the first time? Now it's really kind of when you think about how long this game has actually been worked on where it gets a little strange. So in December of 2017, right after the Champions Ballad DLC for Breath of the Wild, was when we got the first official confirmation from Aonuma himself that they already begun working on the next Legend of Zelda game. And of course, at the time here, we don't know that he's talking about Breath of the Wild 2, but that's really the only game that he could be referring to, because there's no way he's referring to like Skyward Sword HD, or he's talking about some other mainline Zelda game, because there's no way they're working on multiple big mainline Zeldas like that at the same time. They're definitely focusing all of their energy into Breath of the Wild 2. So knowing that, they probably started working on Breath of the Wild 2 around like late 2017, then they had all of 2018, all of 2019. I know the pandemic and everything happened in 2020, but they still had all of that year. They had all of 2021 and all of 2022 this year, as it's going to be releasing next year now in spring of 2023. And so it's really when you put this into perspective that you start to see how insane this is, because it basically means that they've been working on this game for basically half a decade, and the original Breath of the Wild took 5 years just to make from scratch. So once again, with a sequel that's already relying on so many assets and things from the original Breath of the Wild, it's just kind of bizarre to me how the sequel needs basically even more time than it took them to make the game from scratch in the first place. Also, another huge part is the fact that Breath of the Wild is not just an ordinary game. Like, this is a video game that is regarded as one of the best video games of all time, and basically a game that kind of just changed up the entire open world genre for video games back in 2017 when it released. It of course won Game of the Year, and it's just regarded as like one of those really kind of industry changing moments. And of course, because of that, I'm sure that there's a lot of pressure on that team to actually try to top that game and make the sequel be even better, so I totally understand it, but it's just kind of so weird to me how a game like that has taken so long to even give us a title or give us like a proper trailer to really just showcase what this game is like, because the original Breath of the Wild, if you guys didn't know, it took them really only just 3 years to actually make the game itself. It took them 2 years just to make the entire like physics engine and kind of how the world is going to work, and then they took the other 3 years to actually craft the world of Hyrule and all of that. And that's why it's just so weird, because they already have that physics engine from the original Breath of the Wild and that entire foundation, so now they've basically just been working on this game for 5 years, not even like the 3 years that it took to make the original Breath of the Wild, even longer than that, and we still haven't had like a proper unveiling or like a proper even title name for what this game is going to be. Now, what's pretty funny is that this isn't even the first time that we've had an industry-changing Zelda game release and then have that game get a sequel. That game actually goes to my personal favorite Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and also my second favorite video game of all time, right after Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. So Ocarina of Time, I would say, is a game that made just as big of an impact as Breath of the Wild did for the time that it released in. And at the time when the game came out, it really kind of just changed what people saw as video games and what was really possible in a video game, and is regarded to be one of the best video games of all time, and just like Breath of the Wild, an industry-changing game. And just like Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time also got itself a direct sequel known as The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, I wanted to talk about this because just like Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild 2 is also a sequel to a very critically acclaimed Zelda game that is loved by millions of people. But the thing about both of these games is that Majora's Mask and Breath of the Wild 2 are going to have two vastly different types of development. So to put it into perspective using Breath of the Wild 2, let's pretend like it's 1998 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time just released and everybody is loving it, it is critically acclaimed, it wins Game of the Year, millions of people all around the world are loving this game and talking about why it's so good. Now let's fast forward 2 years later to the year 2000, where Nintendo shows you this really kind of interesting teaser video. You see Link a little bit, you see kind of like this weird moon, they kind of tease you a little bit, and at the very end they finally say, the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is now in development. Now of course at this time you would be losing your mind, you would be so excited and hyped, I love Ocarina of Time, it's getting a whole sequel, this is so cool, I'm so excited. But now since that teaser trailer, let's say that you had to wait another 2 years till 2002 where you get another teaser trailer for just like barely a minute of gameplay footage and seeing kind of how this game is going to be like, and you still don't know that the game is called Majora's Mask, but they just keep calling it the Ocarina of Time sequel or Ocarina of Time 2. And then Nintendo makes the announcement that the Ocarina of Time sequel is going to be releasing in spring of 2004. That is literally exactly the same timeline that we have right now for the Breath of the Wild sequel. The key difference, however, is the amount of time. Ocarina of Time came out in 1998, but Majora's Mask came out just 2 years later in the year 2000. Now, I don't want anyone to get the idea that I'm saying Majora's Mask is bad. It's actually one of my favorite Zelda games, but what I'm trying to say though is that if you actually take a look and like research about the development of that game, you can see that Majora's Mask was actually a pretty rushed game, and that game was made in just about a year or so. And it's really because of that I don't compare Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time that much, because of course Majora's Mask was made in just about a year, whereas Ocarina of Time had about 4 years of development. The thing with Breath of the Wild 2 though, is that they're taking just as much time as they did to make the original Breath of the Wild, if not even more. So that's why in that hypothetical situation that I gave, if Ocarina of Time came out in 1998 and you had to wait till spring of 2004 to get exactly what Majora's Mask is, I would be kind of a little disappointed with the game, because that is so much time that you had to wait just to get a game like that. But because Majora's Mask was made in just about a year, I really like that game and I can totally understand it for what that game is. And they could have also done this to the Breath of the Wild sequel, where that's what I originally thought that the game was going to be, where I thought it was going to be like the Majora's Mask to Breath of the Wild. And I don't know if I still have the clip of it, but I remember on that stream when they revealed Breath of the Wild 2, I was like, oh, this game is going to be out in like a year or two, because they're reusing so much stuff from the original Breath of the Wild, and it's going to be just like the Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time, which came out in just like a year or so also. It's going to be just like that, and we're just going to be getting a more refined version of Breath of the Wild. And so that's what I originally thought, but here we are 3 years later, without a proper title, without an actual trailer, and it's just really kind of crazy. And the big thing is just the longer that Nintendo decides to wait to show us this game, the higher people's expectations are going to grow. Now there is another topic that I want to talk about, but I made it one of the last points in the video here, because by this time most people will click off the video and not get to this part, and I don't want a ton of people to see this and get super angry at me and get the wrong idea, but I do want to talk about it, and that has to do with Elden Ring. Now when Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, it was viewed as a big industry-changing open world game because it really kind of took that open world genre to a completely new level and just showcased what an insane open world game could be like. And at that time, that was regarded as like a big turning point in the video game industry because there really wasn't any game to do that to the level that Breath of the Wild did. At the time, I feel like Skyrim was the one that was like really heavily regarded as like the big open world game, and then Breath of the Wild came and really showed like what an insane open world game could be like. And since Breath of the Wild, we saw a ton of open world games be inspired by Breath of the Wild and use similar gameplay elements or a similar art style, but no other game really ever tried to beat Breath of the Wild or try to show what an even more ambitious game could be like until Elden Ring. Now, I know a lot of people don't really like to compare games like this, and I totally understand. I get that Elden Ring and Zelda games are very different from each other, so I'm not going to try to tell you that Elden Ring is better than Breath of the Wild. That's just personal preference, and it's your opinion at the end of the day. But what I do want to talk about is how Elden Ring is definitely a big turning point for open world games, just like how Breath of the Wild was in 2017. Now, I haven't even played Elden Ring, and I would probably suck at it because those types of Souls games are very difficult, but the thing is, I've seen a lot of videos about people talking about it and reflecting on it and just talking about kind of how this game has changed everything, and that game really does have a lot of crazy features and a lot of crazy things that the game did that changed just kind of how people view open world games and the freedom that it gives you, the choices that you can make. It's just really kind of crazy to the point now where Breath of the Wild 2, if it comes out and it's just like Breath of the Wild was in 2017, it's not going to have that insane kind of knocking your socks off wow factor that Breath of the Wild originally had in 2017 because we've already seen games that are trying to be even more ambitious. And the crazy thing with Elden Ring is that that game was also revealed for the first time at E3 2019, and that game is already out now and people are playing it, so it's just kind of weird that that game is basically an entire new game too, an entire brand new game, has already been out, and if we do some research, they basically took about the same time that Breath of the Wild 2 is taking to develop, about 5 or so years, and that game is already out, people are playing it. But Breath of the Wild 2, a game that's already going to be relying so much on reused stuff, is still taking so much longer to even give us a proper title, a proper trailer. It's just so weird to me. And that's why I wanted to make this video and talk to you guys about it, because anytime you try to say something like this on Twitter, people just get really mad at you and start saying like, you know, stop being so impatient, games take a while to make. And it's not even about being impatient. I just think it's weird now that it's been like half a decade that they've been working on this game that's reusing so much stuff probably from Breath of the Wild, and they're still taking so long to even give us a title for it or give us a proper trailer. I just find it so bizarre. And the thing is, we already know that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be releasing next year in spring of 2023, and spring basically means that it's going to be coming out in either March or April or May. That usually counts as like the springtime. After June and July, it starts becoming summer, so usually if it's going to come around then, the game is less than a year away, we're only a couple months from it, and we still barely know anything about it, to the point where we don't even have a title, we don't even have like one big trailer to really showcase what this game is about, and I just find that so kind of crazy. So in terms of the title of this video, there is a rumored Nintendo Direct to happen on June 29th. If that happens, that's really cool, but even if it doesn't happen, just whenever the next mainline Nintendo Direct is, I am going to be expecting to see something about Breath of the Wild 2 in there with like a proper unveiling and hopefully the title drop for what this game is going to be called. If we still get another entire mainline Nintendo Direct and Breath of the Wild 2 isn't in there at all, it is kind of concerning because this game is less than a year away from coming out, it's only a couple of months away, and 2023 is going to creep up on us before you know it. Like, we're already more than halfway into 2022 right now. Next month, of course, in July, we're going to be getting Xenoblade 3, which is going to be a big game to last us for the next couple of months. Then after that, it's going to be the fall time, where we're probably going to see like Bayonetta 3 and Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Then it's going to be holiday time with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Generation 9. And before you know it, it's going to be 2023 when Breath of the Wild 2 is literally only like 3 or 4 more months away. So it's going to creep up on us really soon, and they definitely do need to start showing us at least one big trailer for the game. Now maybe Nintendo's just planning on giving us a Zelda Direct one day, like they did with the Xenoblade 3 Direct, and giving us a ton of information about the game, but until then, we're pretty much just going to be expecting it to show up in a Nintendo Direct, and having us finally get that brand new trailer for the game, and hopefully the title for what this game is actually going to be called, because the longer that Nintendo decides to wait in showing us more information, the higher people's expectations for this game are going to be. And so yeah, there you go guys, that is pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about regarding Breath of the Wild 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, then definitely be sure to click that like button, and also comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this. How are you guys feeling now about the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel? Are you kind of in the same boat as me now, where it's just starting to get a little kind of weird for you because of how long this is taking? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Zelda content in the future, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros. And Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.